call the next update now. You call the next updater. Wait there, special prosecutor any IGP information and the idea mamu say Dr. Mahmoud Baumia any doctor his excellency John Dramani Mahama wohi say ye embra na ono onye president na tamana oye flag bearer for the NDC in sama ohwiegu ho pa anya ono kwa Sami Jemfi Sam George any asiedum ketia mu nyina no ebeya amonkwochiomo why na eka same way the third vice chairman for the NPP Alhaji Masawa Osman ye friend chairman Buga say IGP any Ioko any special prosecutor say atemdidie criminal offense monkwache Mahama na monfo maka nyina engum yenkoti ese ne okano esifa.
When did insult in fact become a crime? I am sending a warning, a caution to the IGP. If insult is a crime, it can lead to arrest. Then the IGP have plenty work to do. If insult is a crime and it can lead to arrest, then the IGP, in fact, in the first place, should arrest John Dramani Mahama, should arrest Sami Jemfi, to arrest Sam George, to arrest all Asedun Ketia. Look, it is clear out there, the president of Ghana, but then John Dramani Mahama, and the former president by then, make a categorically statement, insult the whole tribe. John Dramani Mahama was captured in a video where he has made a devastated word against Achim people. He has insulted all Achim and labeled them as Sakawa. But then the president of the land was Achim man. What did the president say? Is it that Ghanaians are not going to do justice for Akufo-Addo? Akufo-Addo was a president. When John Mahama made this kind of a deviant comment that all Achims are what? Sakawa, and even called them Achim Mafia. We are in Ghana here when John Mahama said the entire nation have a short memory. We are in Ghana here when John Dramani Mahama said Asantis are ungrateful. He has insulted Asantis to the extent he has what? Lead to Asantehene. Because if you insult Asante, you have insulted Asantehene.
You can't shout fire in a crowded theater. Everyone knows that, right? My concern in this country is that often the trajectory between politics, policy, and law is fractured. It's what I call catanomics, right? Normally, in societies that are, matured in these matters, we identify problems through politics. We will talk about it, complain, there's agitation, there's whatever. And then people that are less prone to passion, less driven by sentiment, less moved by the fashion, those people deliberate on policy. And then when policy is in place and it's being tested and we have a sense of what we are trying to do as a society and it's crystallized, then you have law. We tend to mix it up all the time. Start with the law, then we are not able to enforce the law, then we try to develop a policies context, and then the policy is a mess, and then we come back to politics. That confusion of the trajectory between politics to policy and then finally to law is one of our biggest problems. Let me explain this in this context of harmful speech. Harmful speech is a spectrum. We have speech, for instance, that is hate speech. Hate speech is not the same as any other kind of harmful speech. It must be focused on a particularly identifiable group. It must be geared towards discrimination of that group. So a group could be gender-based, it could be racially based, it could be ethnic-based, etc. If the speech is intended to foster discrimination against that group, that's hate speech. And that's not whether it's true, whether what you say is true. If you are basically speaking in such a manner that people feel that Gas, Ewes, Asantes, white people, or whatever are deserving of discrimination, you are doing hate speech. That's not the same thing as incitement.
That's true.
Where you are trying to, in effect, provoke violent expression. You are trying to do things that will get people to act in ways that are violent and for which often there are national security implications, and therefore the police must be up and doing, because if they don't act quickly, something could degenerate.
But speech that incites violence, stirs ethnic or religious animosity and tension, or threatens public peace is hate speech.
Not necessarily. Hate speech is only if there's identifiable groups that you are targeting. When it comes to incitement, it's another set of issues. Often also, incitement is very transitory. We can just remove you, stop you from saying what you are saying, and diffuse the situation, and things are fine. It's not all the time that incitement lives on. Hate speech often lives on. You go on radio and you systematically dehumanize Ga people consistently over time. It doesn't matter that what you did dissipates. It lives on in the subconscious of people, and that has an effect. There is defamation, which has nothing to do with groups, and nothing to do necessarily with national harmony and cohesion. It has personal reputational issues.
That's right.
There is harassment, verbal harassment, which often does not necessarily require proof that that person has been harmed in any substantial way. But if that harassment creates conditions in which the person feels as if, they cannot continue to operate as they would ordinarily operate, then you are still harassing them and they have issues. Here's my concern. We have not thoughtfully thought through all these different dynamics, decided on what we want to do with incitement per se, hate speech per se, etc., verbal harassment, bullying, etc., created that matrix thoughtfully, attempted to implement it through existing law, learned where there are gaps, and then decided what a new law will achieve. We've not done it. And this is how we do everything in this country. Think of it carefully. In every contest, we start like this. There's agitation before you realize there's a new law. And then after a couple of years, we abandon the law. There are laws in this country around littering.
Yeah.
Massive laws around littering.
Yeah.
In 2015, some people got up and said we should now introduce criminal penalties for littering because the fines are not substantively effective. What have we done with the existing laws on municipal bylaws, Public Health Act, etc., etc.?
That's right.
To get us to the position where you can introduce criminal penalties for littering. And I think we have to start reordering the way we organize public affairs in this country very carefully. Start with clarity around policy. What are we trying to achieve in the different areas of harmful speech? Where is it that existing law is not sufficient, etc.? What is it that we can do to implement current law more effectively against verbal harassment and things like that? And then when you are convinced that you need new law, you have a gaps analysis, you have a need analysis, and you plug in the new law. Last point I'll make is that we tend also to privilege the sensibilities and the interests of the powerful. If Mr. Abronye had gone after me, or somebody else had gone after me repeatedly over several years, I doubt that this action would have been taken. I think it's because he started to target senior members of the security services. We should not introduce law that simply makes life comfortable for the powerful. We have to create laws that target the majority. In this country, the biggest problem we have in the area of harmful speech is not the occasional incitement or whatever. We don't have that much of that. What we do have is a huge problem with verbal harassment, with bullying, cyberbullying, etc. And how we deal with that is going to be very difficult because even in countries that have a traditional tendency to look at these things in much greater detail, they are struggling to handle cyberbullying. Last point I'll make is, I think the president was overly focused on law enforcement when he talked about, National Signals Bureau and things like that, right? But a lot of these instances, you cannot use law enforcement primarily to discharge the obligation. Mass cyberbullying. Is National Signals Bureau going to start tracking everyone who abuses people with anonymous accounts on Facebook? Not possible. So in those circumstances, you have to think about moderation. And is it moderation done by Ghana? No, it has to be moderation done by the platforms. And there are countries that are at the forefront of how to handle that kind of moderation. Some have gone to the extreme, like China and the rest, where your comment will just disappear. Maybe that's not where we want to go. We want the kind of moderation that is balanced. But we have to do it in an open manner. If you're going to get Facebook, Twitter, and the rest, because we remember that towards the election, it was evident that somebody was working with the platforms to freeze accounts, to suspend accounts.